Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. My name is Scott Morgenroth, as the hat reads, the Motor City. Well, before I talk about what's in store for us tonight, I want everybody to know that Inside the Pigskin being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube. South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Chat room's one way to do it, or kindly send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter/X is at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes as well as producing the show. And I also have a book out there called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, available on Kindle and Amazon. Also, NGBN will launch on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and mobile devices. It will be in 85% of the homes in the United States and Canada, and 4.1 billion mobile devices. A little bit about my book. It pretty much centers around old school media versus new school media. So everybody can learn from the book, whether you're in the business, want to learn about the business. If you're not in it, students, you name it. So feel free to reach out to us, and I'm sure Amazon will get it to you in a very timely manner. With that said, let me go out there and introduce the crew. George Eichhorn, welcome back.
Hi, Scott. Good to be here. Hi, guys. Looking forward to tonight's show.
And I'm glad to have you. All right. On to
how's it going, guys? Great to see you all.
He's ready. Okay. And Travis Sherlock Holmes, big wide smile every time I call him Sherlock.
Yes, sir. Happy to be back.
Jacksonville's a military town, so therefore Travis don't have a problem with saluting. And of course, we have Mel Farr Jr. and his grandson.
How you doing, guys? Good to be back.
All right. Glad to have you. And last but not least, the coach of the broadcast, and that's Coach John Bonamego. Welcome back, Coach.
Great to be here. Sorry I missed last week.
Oh, that's okay. I know you're taking care of business, but you know what? Because you missed last week, we're going to give you an opportunity to comment on two things that were spoken about. The first thing, Coach, is I want your thoughts about Michigan winning the title and the controversial touchdown by Jamal Williams in victory formation. So start off with Michigan, and then you can talk about Jamal Williams.
Well, first of all, with Michigan, I think the better team won. It was a great game. Washington, excellent football team. But, that game really was won up front in the trenches. I was really impressed with the way, Michigan's defense started that game, and they were able to continue out through the game. They had a strong performance from them. And, Michigan's offensive line, I thought, was dominant against that defense and being able to run the football when they needed to and close that game out. And, it's a great win for a program very steeped and rich in tradition, Michigan. And it's also a big win for the Big Ten. In terms of the touchdown on the victory formation, and it's unfortunate because there was a disconnect there between, what the coaching staff wanted and then the players on the field. I think it was, I know Arthur Smith was upset, and he had every reason to be, in that situation. I know he didn't have very kind words to say to Dennis Allen. It just really was an unfortunate situation of, occurrence. Don't like to see those things happen, but it did. I think, credit to Dennis Allen for, at least coming clean with it, saying what happened. And, it's, not much more to comment on it. It's just, you have a chance the game's over, just take the knee, get the win and get in the locker room.
All right, just a couple of footnotes. Since lately, J.J. McCarthy has declared for the NFL draft. Blake Corum will follow him. And, of course, you have Jim Harbaugh, who had his first interview with the Los Angeles Chargers. So just a couple little updates there. And, yeah, I think the Jamal Williams, it was only his first touchdown of the year. And when you talk about the upgrade the Lions made with Jamal Williams and David Montgomery, it's worth saying the Lions made out like an old team resided in Tampa. They made out like bandits. And I'm referring to the Tampa Bay Bandits. Okay. With that said, okay, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles meltdowns. I've said on this show as well as other ones, I felt the Green Bay Packers were on house money. Indeed, they were. And then they walked out of Jerry's house with a win. All right, we'll start where we left off. Coach Bono, what are your thoughts about both the Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, I think, the Eagles, I think we all could probably see that coming just the way, the season ended. I wasn't surprised by that one at all. The Green Bay, the Green Bay Dallas game, I think was very surprising to me. I didn't anticipate that type of a game at all. Kudos to the Packers, their preparation. I thought their defense came to play. I mean, that's been an area that's kind of been a lightning rod for criticism this year, but they, Joe Barry had that group ready to roll, and they did an excellent job. I mean, Dallas really couldn't do anything. And then, the offensive game plan and the performance of, the offense in Green Bay was absolutely brilliant. They made a defense that was, very strong all year long, really look like a subpar unit. And, it was, kind of an odd week in terms of what we're used to in the wild card round. We're used to competitive games, and, really there was only one of those games that was competitive. So it was surprising in some regards, I guess. And then the other, in other ways, it wasn't as quite as surprising. So it was still fun to watch.
Okay, we'll turn it over to George Eichhorn.
Well, I was surprised. Yeah, definitely. I did not think that Green Bay was going to be able to go into Dallas and do what they did. Obviously, it was an embarrassment to Jerry Jones, Dak Prescott, and the whole Cowboys team. And I know Dak feels really bad about it. I mean, we've talked about this before on this show. The fact is that, he can't do it himself. He takes a lot upon himself. He's a really good quarterback. And a lot of times you don't know what supporting cast is going to show up behind him. And I was just totally surprised. And again, Green Bay, you're talking about a situation where you've got a team that's hot. And, we've seen it before. We see it in the college, in the big dance for basketball. We see it in the NFL. Sometimes we see it in Major League Baseball's postseason. It's just, you just never know. You've got to be prepared. You just cannot let anything happen to your team. But again, Dallas, better record. And you got a lot of fans in Detroit that are smiling and say, ha ha, after that game was stolen from the Lions by a bad officiating call against Dallas. And then as far as Philadelphia goes, we all know that they've been such on a downward spiral the last 6, 7, 8 weeks, whatever it's been. It's just a shame because, here you thought a team was going to possibly go to the Super Bowl again. But, they've had a lot of problems there, a lot of internal problems, a lot of coaching changes. And obviously Jalen Hurts has not been playing, at 100%. So, yeah, Scott, I was surprised by both those games. But again, it goes to show you that when teams come in for a one-game elimination, you better be on your toes. You better be prepared to try to win that game.
All right, I'll turn over to Bo.
Yeah, so I mean, the Cowboys game was surprising and not all at the same time. So I figured they were going to win that game by a field goal, but at the same time, it's the Cowboys in January, and that's oil and water. They really don't like to hang out. So it's not a big shock that they went home early, but I think it's the way they played that game that was such a surprise. Obviously Dak could have thrown 6 picks in that game. 2 of them were picked, but there were 4 other ones that hit guys in the hands. So, I mean, those easily could have been a problem. I think probably the biggest surprise that I had from Dallas there is they were playing so soft on defense that it's like they were scared that things were going to get over the top, but then somehow they also weren't guarding over the top. So I'm not really sure where their corners ended up because anything was short, the corners weren't in the view. Anything that was long, the corners weren't in the view. It's like the ball was snapped and they just went to the sideline. It was very weird to watch that game. And then for the Eagles, to your guys' point, they really backed into the playoffs. They finished the season on that 1-5 slide, and clearly there's more than we know has to be a distraction in that building, because there's no reason for that roster to play as bad as they did. So there definitely has to be some other things going on with that team outside of just coaching issues. But I have to imagine, because their defense couldn't stop anything either, that they move on from Patricia, before next season.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I'll just add a couple things. Number one, the Packers began to turn things around on Thanksgiving Day. And when the Packers decided to let the Lions go ahead and take the opening kickoff, they decided, let's do it again to Dallas. And obviously, you know what? The Packers got in front of everybody. Again, the Packers took the ball first, just like they took it against the Lions. And boy, the Cowboys got run out of AT&T Stadium. Don't kid yourself, folks. That game, don't let the score tell you what it was. This is a bigger blowout. I don't care what points you score in garbage time to make the numbers look better. To me, the Packers had their number, and you know what? As I said, they were on house money. All right, we'll turn over to Travis.
You got it. The Packers had their number. The Packers had the Cowboys' number a lot like the Bills had their number earlier in the season. And the Cowboys, frankly, were just a lot. They were very up and down in that way. It really just depended on how they worked in the first quarter, how they worked in the first few drives. Like if the Cowboys took the lead early, they're a great team for playing ahead. They're a bad team for playing from behind. If you're an offense who was able to continue just attempting to run the ball and playing that play action from it, sucking those linebackers up, they're going to struggle. And that's exactly what it was, to Bo's earlier point. When you're playing a lot of this, cover 3 defense, and you're trying to play your guys deep, but your linebackers are getting pulled up, you're going to either have a lot of intermediate routes that are going to be there. And playing against the Green Bay Packers wide receiver core with these fast rookies, you might even get beat over the top ever so often. And that's kind of that's what we saw. Again, it was the same thing we saw against the Bills a few weeks back. So it is shocking, because honestly, I didn't have it on my bingo card for sure. And again, I'm a Matt LaFleur fan. He coached at Northern Michigan when I was there for my one season, my senior season. He was our offensive coordinator. Like we talked about this in the past. That's my guy. And even I didn't see that coming. I'm just gonna call it what it is. So they took that early lead when you're already up 7-0, and then at that point you can keep running the ball, keep play action, and keep attacking those linebackers. It's a wrap at that point for that Dallas Cowboys defensive front, and they're double teaming and triple teaming Michael Parsons. Yeah, that's it. So that's obviously the most surprising one of the bunch. The Eagles are po-tink. The Eagles are like my Jaguars, man. That end of the season just that's a rough one to come back from. And I mean, I'm still, congratulations, they made it to the playoffs, but it sucks to be that team that might have been one of the best teams in the league to all of a sudden you're out in the first round. So that's just a rough taste in their mouths, and I guess we'll see what they'll do in the offseason to try to fix that locker room.
Yeah, again, I'll go along with Bo as far as the Eagles are concerned. Matt Patricia, to me, is long gone in the eyes of Ernie Harwell. And secondly, when you lose your offensive and defensive coordinators a year out from the Super Bowl, that means that Nick Sirianni has to do a much better job at the coordinator position. I think it would be premature to fire him after this year, but then you have to really put him on a mandate next year to see if they can improve it, because they didn't do themselves any justice. They just looked simply bad. I call it a Monday night sleeper is what I did, but I had to watch it because, again, as I segue to what I'm about to segue, we're going to find out who the Lions' next opponent is, and that's why I decided to watch it. And that next opponent is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, Mel, you've been waiting patiently. Let me go to the comments real quick. Okay, we got Candy Ebling. Okay, go, Pat, go. All right, and there she goes, riding the hot train. Youngest team in the NFL. Defense came to play. Kudos to Love, connecting with his receivers and Aaron Jones. So, yeah, Jordan Love is coming of age is what he is. So the Packers, and of course, who can knock Aaron Jones? A fine running back. Now, as I talk to a running back now.
Yeah, looking at that game, and just kind of bear with me here as I try to go through this. The Cowboys, if you look at them on paper, they're the better team. Whether it's quarterback, wide receivers, defensive players, whether it's rushing the passer, the defensive backs, linebackers. The Cowboys on paper were the better team, but the team that played for one another, and the team that played better as a team won. And I'm saying, the Cowboys are so fragmented. Starting out with the ownership, he loves the limelight. I mean, I don't know I can't think of any other teams where the owner has a radio show, or even the general manager has a radio show. And I'm sure that Dak probably has a radio show. Micah Parsons probably has a radio show, and some other guys have a radio show. So you got a lot of guys that are playing for themselves and not playing for one another. And maybe they started believing some of the press clippings. Maybe they started, Jerry, because of the way that he runs the team, he started believing some of the press clippings, and that kind of filtered its way down through the locker room. That's the team just thought that they could just put on the jerseys and show up and expect to win. And wins, as Coach Bono can tell you, wins are hard to come by in the NFL. It's very, very difficult to win football games in the NFL. And you look at Philadelphia, you can see that coming. I mean, they played some, the teams that they played, the teams that they won, they got that big, I think they started out 10-1. I don't think any of those teams had a winning record. And, when you lose, and we can go back to Atlanta when they went to the Super Bowl, and then the next year they struggled. When you lose an offensive coordinator and you lose a defensive coordinator, that's a big deal. People don't realize how big of a deal that is. And that's why you have to respect even more the job that Coach Belichick has done, because, people have cannibalized his coaching staff. During their heyday, their offensive coordinators were going someplace, or the defensive coordinators. Charlie White's got a job at Notre Dame, on and so forth. Romeo Cornell. I think he got the Cleveland job. I mean, you can just go on and on and on with the coordinators that he had there that ended up getting jobs somewhere else, and yet that train kept running. Same thing with Coach Saban. I mean, they're always stealing people, his folks. It could be position coaches, it could be coordinators. How many different coordinators has he won a national championship with?
Right.
So people don't understand. So that just tells you the true greatness of Coach Saban and even Coach Belichick, even though I attribute a lot of that to Tom Brady. But Coach Saban in particular, and being able to choose and pick and choose the correct person to take over in that position. Philadelphia, for whatever reason, I like the guy, the offensive coordinator, but I think there was a lot more going on there than what meets the eye. They seem to be fragmented from the beginning. Guys wanting to get the ball more. They just weren't playing as a team. They were looking more for individual stats. I think A.J. Brown was more concerned with his stats than he was concerned with winning. They got away from running the football. Jalen, I think, is hurt. He didn't run the football nearly as much this year as he did last year. And that was a big part of what they did last year, him running the football. So, every year something is different. When you're talking about Philadelphia, but you can see that happening because they've been playing very, very poorly down the stretch. I mean, they limped into the playoffs without question. I mean, they were playing very bad football on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball. And I think the coach panicked and named Patricia the coordinator, and that didn't help whatsoever. I mean, you look at Dan Quinn. He's been on the hot list as far as head coaches. If he was on my list, he's not on my list anymore, because it wasn't necessarily the offense that was the problem. It was the defense. They couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't tackle anybody. It didn't seem like he had an answer for whatever LaFleur was doing. And, they let that little young quarterback just, have an outstanding day. I mean, had, probably one of the best days of his career in the wild card round. So if Dan Quinn was on my list, he's no longer on my list.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts was just a shell of himself. It's too bad. Of course, Dan Quinn, obviously, because of what happened against the Green Bay Packers, certainly I thought he would be headed to Seattle. Who knows? Maybe he'll still get the interview. But we'll talk about coaching another day. But Dan Quinn, you're right, Mel. He did not do anything to help his case out. I would safe to say with the amount of routes or double-digit losses that the Lions and the Rams unquestionably was the best game of the weekend. So, with that said, I'll turn over to Coach Bono. You agree?
Got to unmute yourself, Coach.
That's all right.
That would help. Sorry about that. I'm trying to spare everybody the background noise that's in my house, but it was the best game because it was the game, right? It was a true what you expect from playoff football. Two good teams squaring off, hostile environment. The Rams, played well. Stafford had a good game, and it was it came right down to the wire. That one could have easily gone either way. It was entertaining, and you get the storyline with Detroit winning their first playoff game in however long it was. It was, that was hands down, in my opinion, the game of the weekend.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff storyline, Dan Campbell, proud of his man, Jared Goff. I mean, even though it's a Hollywood type of story, it landed in Motown. So it worked out well in the home of music. All right, Bo, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely the best game of the weekend because the rest of them weren't games. I mean, they were all beatdowns for the most part. But it was cool. It was awesome to see Detroit, get that home win in the playoffs. It's been so long, so you feel good for that fan base, and you got to kind of feel good for Goff too. He got to overcome the team that traded off him. So you got to fulfill all the storylines that you thought could have been fulfilled there. So yeah, it was a great game. It was competitive the whole way through, and then the storylines added to it. So yeah, easily the best game of the weekend.
Yeah, and I think the word that a lot of people will reference to when you talk about Jared Goff is vindication is really what it is.
For sure.
And when you think about vindication, he's one of those, and he loves Detroit and they love him. So, now he's going to find himself in their history books for a lot of the right reasons. Now he's the footnote about who's the latest Lions quarterback to win a playoff game. And guess what? He has a chance to win two. So with that said, I'll turn over to George.
Yeah, 32 years, guys. 32 years is a long time since 1991. The Lions had not won a playoff game when they beat Dallas at the Pontiac Silverdome. And Scott and I, of course, remember that game. And I tell you what, the town, so much has been said about this. I mean, the matchup, Stafford coming home. I mean, there was all kinds of extra publicity about that. McVay and Stafford and Josh Reynolds. What a game Josh Reynolds played. Oh, my God. I mean, and the crowd was just unbelievable. It was just the best crowd Dan Campbell said that he's ever seen. Things are clicking right now. And I mean, he's so calm, he's so collected. But when you saw that celebration afterwards and those players in that locker room, and they were chanting his name and wanting him to get a game ball, that tells you what kind of team this is and how they're all playing as a unit. Just like Mel talked about earlier, when you're not playing as a unit, when you're playing for yourselves, like the Cowboys, obviously, and teams like that, it makes so much difference, to be on the same page and the intensity and the passion that he brings to that team is unbelievable. And Jared, yeah, you're right. I mean, try to get a monkey off his back the way he was treated in LA. It was the best game of the weekend, no question about it. And a close game and just a tremendous win for Detroit.
Well, the irony is this. You were at that game. I was at the Rose Bowl. Michigan lost to Washington. And here, Bo, this is good for you. That was the year Washington won the national championship. I actually bought tickets to the game and took the Rose Bowl parade and the Rose Bowl game one day. It was a long day. So, as I appreciate it. What's that?
I said that was a while ago for sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to be nice about it, but for a lot of our younger viewers that probably don't remember, although I say we have a veteran crew here, I don't think I'll have to worry about it quite as much. But no, the Washington Huskies won that national championship. George was there at the Pontiac Silverdome, although I called that place home a lot. And now George gets Ford Field. I know it's a beautiful school. They've been there a few times. So with that said, Travis, okay, Lions and the Rams.
Yeah, this one, it's the only good game of the weekend, and it really was a really good game from all the storylines that everyone else already kind of mentioned. The two quarterbacks going back to their old, like playing against their old teams. That's already just a very interesting, weird season finale for these script writers. We'll say that for sure. But also like if you've been on any of the socials the week before the game, you probably saw the old Matt Stafford injury when he injures his shoulder game tape, because they've been pushing it all week, and then he gets injured in the game, and then he comes back into the game to show off his toughness, and like you get to witness that in that game, in that field. Like, come on, man. Like, that's how do you write that? I would say that was fake, and if that's WWE in any other situation, but it happened in real life, and we all got to see it, and that was like it was a great game. There were no outrageously bad calls that you can say like you can't put this on the refs. Like, hey man, the better team won, and it was a hard fought win until everybody else's point. Like, this is a team that is built not like the Cowboys. This is a team that's built more for actual fighting than a team that's built for show. Like, one of these teams were absolutely built for the show of the game, or the entertainment surrounding the sport, and this other one was built like Brad Holmes. He did a job. The man built a team that you actually might not have a problem going to the club and getting into a fight with him after the game is over. After the Super Bowl is played. Like, I'll give him credit on that. Because I say this because I'm a Jaguars fan. And if you don't know, if this is your first time listening to me talk, like, I'm a Jaguars fan, and we were at the same stage of our rebuilding back in 2021, and you guys did it right. And I gotta give the Detroit Lions fans and audience credit. They did it right. They built the trenches. They built a hard team and they slowly crept up, and now you guys have built it, seemingly for the long run. So, great game, great job. Take it in. Hopefully, you get another win this week.
So are you saying the Jags need to, up their kneecap biting game?
We're gonna talk about the Jaguars later. We can't right now.
Yeah, he's struggling with that one, Bo. All I'll say about Brad Holmes is, if you get involved with the trade, he's likely to fleece you. I call Brad Holmes NFL's version of Red Auerbach. He will fleece you all day long. He really would. There's an interesting comparison, by the way. Brad Holmes and Red Auerbach. I mean, and he doesn't get enough credit. So not only is he a fleece artist because he's good, and again, you talk about some guys that went over from the Rams to the Lions. He's one of the ones that gets talked about. I think Josh Reynolds was the other one, right, George?
Yeah, the waiver wire pickup. You guys got Josh Reynolds for free. Like, what?
Matter free. He still played at the Rams. He certainly had a mission on his chest to go out there and do it as well. But Brad Holmes, fleece artist, this guy's unbelievable. All right, well, we'll turn it over to Mel. Although it seems like Mel's got Ma Bell. Okay, I didn't know if you had a phone or you had your grandson, but anyways, let's talk about the Lions and the Rams.
Yeah, I mean,
is he cute, isn't he? Oh, for all you people out there that love kids, he's got one. What a great sight. We can freeze that moment in time. Goodness.
This is my little buddy here. That game was obviously a game that I was looking forward to. Like I said, because, obviously we have a lot of history with the Lions, with my dad, my brother, my uncle playing there. And then, I played for the Rams. And, my brother and I were talking about it, and he was saying that, that Sean McVay, he was concerned because Sean McVay knew Jared Goff's weaknesses and could exploit those, because obviously he was his coach for a number of years. And I said, I don't think that's really the problem. Really, the problem is going to be whether or not the Lions, what defense shows up for the Lions, because we know that their defense is sometimey. They're a little suspect. They can't get home with 4, and when they do blitz, they don't get home. And when you blitz, you've got to get home. Somebody's got to come off free. Somebody's got to come off scot-free and get home. And it's like guys running into magnets. Every time I see them blitz, I mean, everybody just run right into a man. And I just don't understand it. I mean, they don't overload one side or make it look like it's going to be pressure, and then coming from one side and come from another side, and the guys just running in there scot-free, as you see with a lot of other teams. Teams just have guys running in there free with or either somebody's winning in the middle. And that's what concerns me about the Lions. Now, having, with with Philly having lost, they play Tampa Bay. Hopefully they aren't too confident when when Tampa Bay comes in. And, I don't think that, that their coach is going to allow them to be too confident. I mean, I was one of the guys that was like, who is this guy talking about kneecap biting? But I've had to apologize and really, after I watched the Hard Knocks, and come to say that I think he's the right guy for the job because he's perfect for that city. I mean, he's a blue collar guy. That's a blue collar town. They built that team the right way. You look at Brad Holmes; he's built that team the right way. They built it from the inside out. They're going to run the football. They're going to hit you in the mouth. They're going to play hard. They're going to play physical. It's nonstop. And so I do believe that they got the right guy for the job. Now, the one thing that I was thinking about, and just bear with me here, Midwest teams, the Lions are one of 3 teams in the Midwest that have a dome, right? Minnesota and also Indianapolis. Just think, and I know that the dome is nice for the fans and so forth, but just think if they had an open air stadium with the stadium opened up towards the river, so some of that cool, crisp air could get in there. What type of advantage they'd have right now? Okay, you'd have the Rams coming in. They don't want any of that cold weather. I played in cold weather when I was with the Rams. Matter of fact, we played 3 cold weather games consecutively. We went out to New England, went back home, then came to Philly, and came back home, and then went to the Giants. And playing in cold is no fun. Guys were catching on fire in front of that tornado, that big tornado heater. I mean, you could smell people's uniform burning because they're so close to that big heater. Now, just think. Now, Tampa Bay would have to come play in this cold weather. Wouldn't it be nice if Detroit decided to build the next stadium that they build would be an open air stadium? It's only a few games and folks would have to deal with the real cold air, but what an advantage it is for the home team. You look at Kansas City and the way they just dominated Miami. Miami didn't want to be out there in that cold. Not at all. So when you have an advantage like that, you have to utilize it. I mean, Buffalo, open air stadium, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Baltimore, both the New York teams, Pittsburgh. I mean, we need to have an open air stadium in Detroit so that we can have a true home field advantage.
Let me tell you something, Mel. If the Lions build another stadium in 50 years, you know what? I'd have to do the math, but I think I would be about 111. So I can tell you where I'll be when they build it. I'll be in a cemetery in Milwaukee, okay? It's called taking a concrete nap, okay? I'm not going under, so those, whatever you want to call it, can go at me. I don't know what they do upstairs, but I know I'm not having no part of it downstairs. So,
Scott, where's your confidence, man? Where's your confidence? You
I'm
won't be here at 111. Come on.
I'm trying to go to 150, man. I'm trying to get 150.
Huh?
I'm trying to get to 150. That's what I'm working on.
There we go. There we go.
62 would get at least Social Security, but still, it isn't about confidence. It's about knowing that very few people understand I have a game named after me that you can buy at Walmart called Operation, because when you've had 29 of them, then you won't have to worry about finding out what parts of my body were operated on. Just go out there and buy it for whatever they charge these days. But my confidence is this. I'll be taking a concrete nap in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, next to my wife. I don't know much about them, but like I say, I know what happens down there. And, I like the Travis Holmes reference when he talks about a WWE thing here, because I never thought I'd see WWE mixed in with football. Although I should say Brock Lesnar made an attempt to try to play football, and he thought better of it instead of getting beat up every day, get beat up once every few months. It's a little bit of a better career decision. So, yeah, no, or at least a retractable, then have it open when the warm weather teams come up. But, I mean, we could get into that Miami Dolphins, Kansas City thing all day long, but the Dolphins were at fault for that because they couldn't beat Buffalo at home. And guess what? They ended up getting a ticket to Kansas City, and they weren't eating barbecue. They were being, I would consider, they were like frozen custard. And the term that defines the Miami game is the Kansas City Chiefs went ice fishing. So we'll leave it at that. So with that said, everybody comment on the Lions and the Rams. We're going to whet your appetite. Everybody get in? All right, good. So we're going to start out with Bo, the game you're looking forward to this weekend.
The thing that's funny is there's actually not really one. I like the lineup. I actually like all 4 games here. KC and Buffalo, that's going to be an electric game, or it should be. Tampa and the Lions is going to be cool. Both scrappy teams looking to prove something. So that's a fun way to go. Baltimore Texans, seeing what CJ Stroud can do against that Baltimore defense, I think could be amazing. And of course, Green Bay at San Fran. We just saw what Green Bay did in Dallas. So is that really what Green Bay is? Dallas really that bad? We're going to find out. So actually, I don't know that there's one game that I'm looking forward to more than I think we're actually going to see some playoff football this week, as opposed to that dumpster fire we watched this last week.
Well, you know what, Bo? For the first time in my entire life, I'm going to call you Barry Sanders because you eluded my question better than you. That's okay. I'm more than satisfied to put you in the same sentence with Barry Sanders.
I'll take that.
That's all right. You did a good job. I'm just saying that you had more moves on this show, or as many as Barry Sanders and George and I had a chance to watch him play all the time. So that's okay. Your answer is acceptable because I'm sure a few of us will come up with our own. All right. With that said, Coach, you're next.
The one I'm probably most looking forward to is Kansas City and Buffalo. I think it'll be a great matchup. Anxious to see Mahomes play his first playoff game on the road. But I'm with Bo. There's a lot of great matchups, man. My dream scenario would be, Green Bay goes down and upsets San Fran, and Detroit has the opportunity to win and have the NFC Championship game at home in Detroit. Wouldn't that be something?
I'll tell you, really got you got my wheels turning. It doesn't take much to get my wheels turning, but boy, you just did. Good job, Coach. Okay. All right, Mr. Detroit, George Eichhorn.
Well, of course, I'm looking forward to the Lions game, but I agree. There's 4 good games there, interesting matchups. You think back to last year, and remember the Lions finished 9-8, and they prevented Green Bay from making the playoffs. So, Green Bay's got some sweet revenge going, okay? Also finishing 9-8, Tampa Bay, interesting enough. And they're both in the Elite 8 right now. And the Lions, which a lot of people didn't think they could win a playoff game. So you got a lot of storylines here. It's going to be an incredible weekend of football, doubleheader both days. And the Lions, Scott, get Mike Tirico once again behind the microphone. Remember Mr. Asterisk on opening night and the Kansas City victory for Detroit? And Mike wanted to put an asterisk next to it. Well, he's eating some more crow this week because guess what? He and Collinsworth are back at Ford Field for Sunday's game. But yeah, I agree, Bo. I mean, there's so many great games, and you guys illustrated that Green Bay, and I'm looking forward to that one too in San Francisco, and it's going to be a fun weekend.
Well, you were at the game. Was there any asterisk signs out there? Anybody talking to him about it?
No, I didn't see any, but there's probably a lot that maybe didn't get shown on television. A lot of those signs, of course, the network has to be very cautious about putting up, and not that they're dirty or anything like that, but some people do have some crazy signs.
Yeah,
I didn't see one though.
I didn't know if you had heard any talk in the press box at all. That's what
I did notice Collinsworth a couple of times too. He said on the broadcast about. Yeah, Mike, you live around here. He didn't say Ann Arbor by name, but yeah, Mike, you live around here.
Yeah,
but anyways,
yeah. You painted a good picture. The Lions beat the Packers on NBC a year ago and caught the National Football League's attention. Green Bay decided to make the Lions turn them into a broiled turkey is what they did by ending up winning that game. So now you have a possible third act. This reminds me of one of those trilogies, is that what they call them? Where you have Ali Frazier. Well, you may have a third one if Green Bay does. Well, I don't think it's impossible to see what they did to Dallas. That'll be the most interesting game on the planet. But we'll turn it over to Travis.
This is a weird one because I like everyone else. If you're a fan of good football, you are going to love this weekend. And I'm a fan of all the games, but if I have to pick one, I'm I'm intrigued. I'm curious. I'm most curious about this Texans versus Ravens game because it's a game where they're going to be playing potentially in freezing temperatures, a lot like that Kansas City Miami game that we just saw. And I'm just curious which team's going to actually like play better just within that weather. Like you got a Ricky CJ Stroud who hasn't really he hasn't had to play through something like this just yet. So I'm just kind of curious what that's going to look like for that team that generally struggles running the ball, but also the Ravens who have had basically a 2-week bye at this point. Potentially may even get Mark Andrews back. So I'm wondering if that's going to be any rust there, and they're the favorites, for the AFC. So I'm just kind of curious what that's going to look like, because it's not to say that the Texans are a team that couldn't upset them. And weird as it is, the Ravens are actually worse at home this year. They're not a bad team on the road or at home, but they're just worse at home. They're 6-3 versus 7-1. Basically, they only have one loss versus 3 losses, and I'm just like, this is just curious for you bettors, any gamblers out there. That's just one for me that's going to be like, all right, the low scoring all day, but how did that work out? So yeah, Texans Ravens is definitely my pick.
Okay, we'll turn it over to Mel.
Well, I can answer that question for you. I mean, this time of the year, especially in those type of weather games, you have to be able to run the football. If you can't run the football effectively, it's going to be very, very difficult for you. And that's the situation that Miami found themselves in. We know that the Texans don't run the football that well, even though their offense is an offshoot of that Kyle Shanahan offense. But
Right.
for whatever reason, they have not been able, to get that running game going. We know what Baltimore does. They're built for this. This is what they do. This is what they want. And then, get that, you sprinkle in a little play action. And next thing you know, you're down by a few scores. And then, those guys get an opportunity to pin the ears back and go after the quarterback in this weather. So I can kind of give you a preview of that game. But I'm looking forward to all the games because, this is the best and worst time of the year. It's the best time of the year because you get some great football. Worst time of the year because it's 1 week less of football, and this football season's getting ready to come to a close. And the Lions really have a path, in which they can get to the dance. I mean, you just have to, take it one game at a time and, play the opponent that's in front of you and, don't get too far ahead of yourself as long as they're able to continue to, if the Lions are able to keep it close, they have an opportunity. If Jared has to drop back 60 times like Dak did, you're in trouble. Okay, you're going to be in trouble if he has to do that. If he has to drop back 30 times, you're going to be in trouble. If you can get him to drop back somewhere between 20, 25 times, that means you're in the ball game. That means you're going. Everything is going according to your game plan, and you just want to be there late. You want to have a chance to win late, and you'll have a chance to win it. If they can do that, they can take it all the way. Obviously, once they get past the Bucks, San Francisco's a whole other animal there. And I think that's the team that's probably going to win that game, is San Francisco, because they have been playing very, very well. But
Right.
I'm looking forward to all the games.
Yeah, well, I am too. I'm going to say the Lions and the Bucks for this reason. The Lions obviously beat the number 1 pick in the draft on Sunday in Matthew Stafford, don't they know? And now against Baker Mayfield, another number 1 pick in the draft. This tells a lot of scouts and draft experts that the number 1 picks in the draft can work out if you get the right one. And, I have a personal interest in it because many years ago when I lived in Tampa, we all know that the Lions had more fans at Tampa Stadium than the Buccaneers at the Sombrero. So it's an interesting old divisional matchup. But again, who would have thought the Lions and the Buccaneers would be playing this deep into the playoffs, knowing that the Buccaneers, had Tom Brady, and yet Mayfield was 9-8, and Tom was 8-9 in the Lions. Well, I think a lot of people expected them to do well, and obviously they have. And Dan Campbell leading his team to a 12-5 record with this mindset that he don't have to break kneecaps. It seems like a lot of their players are injuring ACLs with some of those hits that they're laying on them. So, and like Andy Ebling said, the Tampa used to be in the same division as the Lions. Yeah, I remember that. I used to like it a lot because I come down to Tampa, hang out with my old buddies at the Tampa Tribune, see my old boss, Tom McEwen, and I'm a proud USF Bull. So, it'll be, I guess what makes the Kansas City game more interesting is Patrick Mahomes going to have to play on the road for a change instead of at home. And we all know that Buffalo's an interesting place. The Ravens to me are certainly the favorite, but again, don't underestimate CJ Stroud, this guy. And the Packers are on house money. I don't care what anybody says. So they can enjoy the experience. They're only going to get better. So I'm going to lean toward the Lions and the Buccaneers for a lot of different reasons. All right. So with
I'm sorry, you just said something. Can I change my answer to that KC Buffalo game? I forgot about that. That's a free WWE matchup. Goodness, Bills
Exactly.
Mafia in the playoffs. Oh man, how did I miss that?
well, that's okay. We allowed you to correct it. So
You're just used to him being at home, right?
Travis home instead of Holmes. Oh, that was sorry, I had to do that. Everybody speak on this one. All right, just making sure.
I have one other thing, Scott. I did not realize this, but that was the first Lions win in the wild card round. I did not know they had 9 straight losses. So they're 1-9 in the wild card round. And then in the divisional, the round we're in this weekend, in 5 games, the Lions are 3-2. Just a little bit more trivia. That's all.
Why not? We're full of information. Our goal here is to entertain and inform and educate. And George Eichhorn certainly put our mission out there. Good. Any more facts out there? More than happy to have them. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and let Travis Holmes lead off on this. Okay. What happened to the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2023? A lot of prognosticators thought they were going to get in the playoffs, but they're home. Okay, for the tournament.
Well, I mean, how much time you got, buddy?
All
right.
So maybe 10 minutes to go.
All right, man. The Jacksonville Jaguars have had some issues that once they became prevalent, like once they became obvious as far as the tape is concerned, every team knew exactly how to attack the Jacksonville Jaguars. And what basically occurred was there was the game against the Buffalo Bills, and then that followed up by the game against the San Francisco 49ers. Both of those games basically showed the Jacksonville Jaguars have some serious issues on the inside of their interior of their offensive line. And as soon as teams started realizing that, you have a lot of teams that started doing double A gap blitzes. They were just struggling to stop those blitzes up the middle, struggling to stop any team that had a dominant nose tackle. And once you have a quarterback who literally has no pocket to step up into, your play action's done. Your play action from under center is done. Your run game is inside is pretty much done. Like it just changes everything. It changes your offense. And then the injury started after that to their receiver core. You're losing Christian Kirk for the last 5 games of the season, losing Zay Jones for 8 games in the season. There's 2 of their top 3 wide receivers. Just all of it. So some of this is just bad creation of a roster. Like I gave Detroit Lions the credit earlier when I said, hey, you guys are at the same levels of your rebuild in 2021 and you built from the trenches out, and the Jaguars built from the skill positions in, and it didn't work because that interior O-line is just not good, and the interior D-line has some of those same issues. So all that to say is, man, that's a sucky way to find out that you have some big issues going on, and and you have a whole offseason to try to figure that out. But also, FYI, the Jaguars sent out a survey to the fans asking them how their experience was in the playoffs at the field by mistake today. So that was also very embarrassing.
That is amazing.
We're Dan Edwards when we need him. That's all I can say. Dan's a really close friend of mine, and
Friend of mine too. He's the best. Love Dan Edwards.
oh, Dan Edwards is unbelievable. It really is. Well, with that said, okay, Coach Bono, why don't you go ahead and comment on that? Also, George Eichhorn talks about Sunday. Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. A doubleheader in Motown with the Bucks and the Lions at 3, and the Lightning and the Red Wings moved from 5 to 7 p.m. Good thing that the stadiums are pretty close by, and any outlet that wants to go ahead and bring that up, the writers, they can do 2 for the price of about half a mile. All right, go ahead, Coach.
Well, I mean, I think Travis did such an outstanding job of summarizing that. You know, I don't know how much more there is that I can really add. I can just know this, that, you're looking at a team that started off 8-3, had a lot of promise, and then finished 1-5 down the stretch and ends up missing the playoffs and really, lost the game on the road in Tennessee that really they should have won. They were a better team. I think, with all of the things that Travis so eloquently outlined for us, I think one of the things that with a young team, and this one falls back on coaching. I think that as human beings, we are much better adept to handling failure than we are handling success. It's difficult for teams, for individuals to handle success because you start to build that hubris or that false confidence, thinking that you have arrived. You're reading the press clippings where when you have adversity, if you're worth anything, your instinct is to, circle the wagons, your back's against the wall and you're going to come out swinging. So I think that's one of the areas that, along with what Travis outlined for us, where I think they failed. They weren't able to handle that success and sustain the momentum and, keep that competitive edge that you have to have. Like Mel said earlier in the show, it is very, very difficult to win games in the National Football League. Everybody, any given Sunday, irregardless of what the record of the team is, who's playing, who's not playing, they're professional football players, professional coaches, and you're going to get everybody's best shot. So I think that's one of the things as a young team they've got to learn is stick to the process, be more process driven. I certainly think, one of the things that can't go unnoticed is Trevor Lawrence getting hurt. I mean, he's a young player, he wasn't practicing and you could see it. I mean, you got to give him a lot of credit. He still went out there and competed, but it's hard to be on your A game when you're hurt. And it's hard to be on your A game when you miss practice, especially a young quarterback. He needs the reps in practice. He needs to make those throws. He needs to make those checks. And, I know for a fact there were a lot of weeks where he wasn't out there until Friday. He's missing the bulk of the week and then going out and competing on really one day of which is the lightest day of practice in the NFL, which is Friday. So that's my 2 cents.
Well,
Coach Bono, I just wanted to say one thing. You just said something that I forgot to mention, and I'm happy you brought it up. I did a breakdown of Trevor Lawrence's interceptions on my Twitter a week ago, and he had 14 interceptions, and 8 of them came on miscommunications or tip balls from his receivers. 8 of his 14 interceptions on the season. Yeah. So what you just said, him being injured all those weeks and not practicing with those guys, meant they were on the same page, and all those option routes and things of that nature. You hit it dead on.
And with the changes that they made, I mean, look, I'm a coach. I hate to see any coach get fired. I really do. But I'm glad that at least for his sake that they kept the offensive side pretty much intact, because one thing you don't want to do with a young quarterback is he'd be playing for another, he'd be his third offensive coordinator in 4 years or whatever. That's not a good formula when you're trying to continue, which he is a developing guy. He's an ascending player. He has, he's nowhere close to as good as what he could eventually be in my mind. So again, I've talked too much. Thank you.
Oh, no, I think you've done great. I love watching you talk more because you bring as much of the show as anybody. I'm not knocking them, but having coached in this game, all we can do is learn from someone like you. I mean, everybody brings their own dynamic personality to the show, but when you're talking to a coach that's been there and done that, that's fine. All you did was just make it easy for me to talk less on this topic. I'll say this. Anytime Trevor Lawrence misses one game, which he did, you got a problem, okay? And number 2, what happened to the Jaguars? They had a postseason hangover is what they did. As a result, they missed the playoffs. And I will keep my comments short so I can turn it over to Mel, who has all of about a couple minutes before he has to put the little guy down. So go ahead, Mel. Why don't you talk about this? And then I'll let you go by letting everybody know how you can be reached. Go ahead. Talk about the Jaguars. but not on mute. Because I didn't take
Sorry about that.
I didn't
Looking at it from
lip reading.
afar, because I don't have a great knowledge. I don't follow him too much. But yeah, the fact that Trevor Lawrence got hurt really hurt the team. I mean, he's been hurt pretty much all year. I think it started out with a little banged up knee, if I'm not mistaken. And then towards the last couple of games of the season with that shoulder injury, and it was his throwing shoulder. For a quarterback or a pitcher, that's a big deal. For a guy that's throwing a fastball, he's throwing fastballs. He's not throwing junk balls. He's not throwing curves and change ups, knuckle balls. He's got to be able to throw a fastball. For a guy that's throwing a fastball, that's a big deal for him. And kudos to him. You take your hats off to him for wanting to go out there and continue his streak. But you have to say that they're going to go as he goes. So if he's unable to play, that makes it very, very difficult for them. And then, I think Travis talked about it. They do have to address the offensive line. They have to get him some protection, and they have to limit the turnovers as well. I mean, that's a problem. They do have to limit those turnovers, him turning over the ball in particular. But I think that like I said, it's hard to win, man. Every one of these teams, they got coaches. All those guys are getting paid, and everybody has families that they're trying to support. Everybody's trying to keep their job. So it's very, very, very difficult to win in the NFL. And if you can appreciate that, you can understand, you wouldn't, and the thing that bothers me, and like Coach Bono said, he's a coach. He doesn't like to see anybody get fired. But boy, these pundits like to fire folks in a heartbeat. I mean, in a heartbeat. I mean, they want Mike McCarthy's head on a platter right now. Man, the guy, all he's done is won 12 games a year. I mean, that's all the guy's done. When they won, I remember the Ohio State coach, man, they won his head on the platter. I mean, all the guy did was average winning, 10 games a year. They won his head on the platter. I don't understand it. They're so quick to fire guys. It takes time, man. Just think if they would have fired Campbell after the first year. Where would the Lions be right now? You got to have some patience. You got to trust in the guy that you've hired. I've talked to this before. These are billionaire businessmen. Supposedly they make good decisions, but they can't seem to get that hire correct. But you have to give them an opportunity. You have to give the guy an opportunity to coach, for his philosophy to take a full effect. You just can't. You don't win by starting all over again, because who's the next whiz kid? Who knows who the next whiz kid is? Everybody's looking for the next Sean McVay, the next LaFleur. They're looking for the next, the next hot kid. There's only so many of them out there. The next Kyle Shanahan. There's only so many of those whiz kids out there. Sometimes you just got to dance with the girl that you brought to the dance. That's what you got to do. And, she might have two left feet, but you got to work with her and teach her, just side to side. Just teach her to, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. And eventually, she'll get the hang of it. And next thing you know, you guys will start looking good together.
All right. The only thing I'll add to this whole thing is this, and I'll talk what Coach Bono said. Thankfully, they kept the offensive guys, but I know that Doug Peterson obviously is cleaning house on the defensive side. So now, why don't you let everybody know how to get a hold of you? I know you have to be out around 9:30, so why don't you do that? Everybody talk about this subject. George, did you get a chance to talk about the Jaguars yet?
No. The only part I wanted to add, Scott, and you take a look at the rushing game, and it went right down the toilet. Okay, so those losses, that second half of the season, you cannot win ball games with 59 yards against Frisco, 81 against Houston, 71 against Cincinnati, the Browns, 58. Just go down the line. This is what Brad Holmes and Campbell did in Detroit. They built that running game, and you got to do that if you want to be successful. You can't put it all on Trevor Lawrence. And for me, that just stands out that the rushing game was just not up to par for Jacksonville that second half.
Very good. Okay, Mel, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me on all social media at Mel Farr Jr. That's Twitter or X, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads. Catch me there. And then you can follow what we have going on for the youth at melfar.org. And then we got something going on that's going to be going on around the draft that I'm going to let you guys know about as we get a little bit closer to the draft that we're going to be doing up there in Detroit to celebrate my dad. So appreciate it and look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, see you next Tuesday. Have a great week, Mel. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being on. All right. With that said, there are 5. And really, we've pretty much covered all the ground that we're going to cover. We're going to do away with parting shots. So with that said, Coach Bono, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
You can find me right here or on LinkedIn. My wife's got Facebook. She's at PauletteBonamigo.com or whatever. I'll have it next time. But
Okay.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Well, we love you. So, Coach, I want to make sure that we're clear on this. So you said you're free to be on the Pundits Pundit this Thursday. Is that correct?
Yes, I should be. I anticipate no issues there.
Beautiful. Because we have a great topic. We want to let everybody know Pundits Pundit that Coach John Bonamego is going to be talking some very good stuff. So all I can tell you is Jacob Christner and Zenzel Snipes. We got a winner here coming on Thursday. All right. With that said, Bo, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so you can find me here every Tuesday night, and of course my channel at Football-Talk and Roku TV 5 days a week.
And Bo does a great job helping us on Twitter X, at least looking at a lot of the stories. I bombard him, but hey, he knows whatever I send him can help him with his broadcast anyways. All right, George, go ahead.
Yep, you can see me at the Motor City Tribune. So I write for the South Florida Tribune, but underneath that is the Motor City Tribune. My sports columns appear. At the end of my column is always a link if you'd like to pick up a copy of my book, a Detroit Sports Broadcasting History book. It's available at Amazon. And you can reach me at LinkedIn and Yahoo and Twitter at SanG Sports99. And you can follow me on Pundits Pundit and Inside the Pigskin, 108 Stitches, Sports Exchange, wherever Scott needs me. Happy to be on with all of you.
And baseball will be coming back real soon, so be ready for announcements. And last but not least, Travis Sherlock Holmes. All right.
And you can find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes. You can find my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars at bigcatcountry.com. You can find me here every week, wherever you get your podcasts, Inside the Pigskin at 8:30 p.m. on Tuesdays. And you can find me on my Jacksonville Jaguars podcast with my co-host Kyle Nash, student of the game. And that is on Fridays at 11:30 a.m. That's the Duval Dive, a Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. As always, gentlemen, thank you for having me.
Oh, we enjoy having you, Travis. You've come a long way since you've been on here. All right, for the last time, in case you're just joining us, just to let you know, Inside the Pigskin is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in the chat room. That's one way to do it. Or you can send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Want to advertise cost efficiently? Give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter/X, is where you can find us. At Tribune South, Candy Ebling is behind the scenes, and she's producing the show as well. My book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, which basically talks about old school media versus new school media, is available on Kindle and Amazon. Also, one other note, NGBN TV will launch on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and mobile devices. It will be in 85% of the homes in the United States and Canada and 4.1 billion mobile devices. I can't count that high. I don't think anybody can, but we're going to see some numbers from a lot of different places. So great job by my crew tonight. On behalf of Mel Farr Jr., Coach John Bonamego, Bo Crouch, Travis Holmes, and George Eichhorn, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. We will see you next Tuesday as we get ready for more playoff action. We start with 8, and we will be down to 4 by the time we go on air next Tuesday night. Good night, everybody.